So, we filled this carboy with the wort. It doesn't have any yeast in it, which means it will just sit there until it gets a bacterial infection. So, I got this big cup of delicious yeast, which I did start a while ago. Make sure you clean this thing out. I know it's a pain but still, make sure you clean that thing out. Alright. Alright, a little more. I'm just going to go ahead and top this up with water. Ain't no harm in doing that, don't you know? Alright. Not totally necessary either. There we are. Alright. So, now. My tough guy noises, by the way. I know there's a thermometer on this thing. Here it is. Alright, we got some optional things for you to do. And when I say optional, I mean absolutely necessary. No, I'm kidding. You could leave it right now. You know what? Looking at this, it's a lot darker than I thought it would be for an Irish red, but that's neither here nor there. Got a couple readings we can take, or we should take. First reading is the temperature. Alright, let's take a look. Like I said, I got the temperature thing here. Wow. Strip's hard to read. Thinking it's 70. Thanks, son. My lovely wife saves the day again. Some of the times these things are just next to impossible to actually read. Alright, I'm really not getting a good reading unless it's 43 degrees, which I find very hard to believe.
Yeah, it's not that cold.
Alright, well, we're going to go get a thermometer. I will be back in just a minute. Alright, we got a couple more things to do, a couple readings to take. I know, been a long day. We're almost done, don't worry. First of all, a temperature reading. It looks like we have about 90 degrees. It's a little hotter than I would have liked it to be. But nonetheless, 90 degrees. Alright, the next reading I want to take is what's called a hydrometer reading. A hydrometer is a thing like this. You can buy it at the brew store. Got different things on it. Alright, now, you've got 3 different scales. One's called the percent sugar balling scale. I don't use that very much. Triple scale beer and wine hydrometer, I use that. And potential alcohol by volume, that is my favorite scale. Now there is a formula to turn the triple scale beer and wine hydrometer, which reads something like 1.000 is water, then 1.0, 10, 20, 30, 40, so on and so forth, are different readings. And you can use that and figure out your alcohol by volume. What I like to do is this scale here says potential alcohol by volume. Starts at 0, goes all the way down here to 20. Basically, let me explain what a hydrometer is first. When you start with your wort, or your must if you're doing wine, there's a certain amount of sugar in that. So you take a hydrometer reading, and that tells you basically how much sugar is there. Now, after your fermentation happens, after you let it sit for however long you let it sit, 2 weeks in our case, there will be less sugar than there was before. Now, since yeast eats sugar, we assume that the difference between the sugar on the first reading and the sugar on the second reading is going to be how much sugar the yeast ate. Knowing how much the sugar the yeast ate, we can calculate, well, scientists can't, I can't, they can calculate how much alcohol by volume is in your alcoholic beverage. So again, I am looking at the potential alcohol by volume scale. They've got cool little test tubes to put these in. I used the case it came in. I know I'm cheap. Just remember, I sanitized it. This is a turkey baster. They sell these in the brew store for about $10. Or You could go to Kroger where it's called a turkey baster and get it for $3. I would suggest the latter. In case you don't know what the latter means, it's Kroger. Alright.
Grocery store, if there's no Kroger.
Oh, yeah, any grocery store. Marsh would work too. Alright. Now, let's see. My specific gravity, if you want to be all fancy like, is 1.050 or thereabout. My percent by volume is the one I really care about. Ooh, not as high as usual. 5, 6, 7. Looks like 7. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 5 and 2 marks make 7. Alright, it's 7. You notice I wasted beer? Well, I didn't really. I would rather pour it back, or would rather pour it into the sink than risk a contamination by pouring it back in there. You don't want to contaminate that. Okay, now I just said it was 7. Kind of sounds like I meant it's 7% by volume. That's not what I meant. That means my initial reading is 7%. My next reading could be whatever. Let's say my next reading is 2. 2%. Then I would take 7 minus 2 to get 5, and my total would be 5. See, I'm going to let this sit, and then I'm going to come back to it, and I'm going to take this reading again. I'm going to take that I'm going to take that specific gravity reading again, but instead of my specific gravity, it's going to be my final specific gravity. And I'm going to subtract, that first number I got today, excuse me, from the second number I get then. So if I get a 2 next time, I'll do 7 minus 2 equals 5. That means my beer is 5% by volume. Now, I'm actually going to do this because it's just that important. I'm going to write it down. Super important to write these things down. This isn't even the same pen I wrote it originally. It's a big, thick pen.
Brew book.
Exact temperature I said was 90 degrees. Specific gravity I said was 7%. Okay, gotta keep this here. In the brew book also, after I put my recipe, what I did, exact temp, specific gravity, final specific gravity, and alcohol by volume, I've got ways I have to improve it, and tasting. I think you should judge your beer. There's a 50-point scale and a 20-point scale. Google 50-point beer judging scale. You should get something. Not going to go into it right now. But it's definitely worth judging your beer so you know how to improve it. Because it's all about making a better beer. Next thing. This. Buy it in the homebrew store. It's super. What it does is it goes on top of your beer like such. Alright. Then you tighten it down, of course.
Do you want this inside of it?
Not yet.
Gross.
Blah, blah, blah. Tighten it down. And this is a handle. You can carry it around. Now, this is just a piece of the tubing and this thing. It's usually orange. You can buy it in your homebrew supply store. Pop this on here. Then you take this in and you just pop it into some sort of thing that's going to, literally, it just needs to hold water. Now, the reason I do that is called a blow-off tube. What's going to happen, if everything went right, you did everything correctly, which I'm hoping I did, you're going to get a very active fermentation. And a bunch of bubbles are going to come up through this tube and start bubbling off in there. I'm actually going to put that in a bucket just so it doesn't get all over the floor. It'll bubble like that for usually 2 or 3 days. Now what I do is I let it sit with a blow-off tube for 1 full week. After the 1 full week has passed, I will take the blow-off tube off and wash it. That way it's not too hard to wash. And then I will take your standard airlock, which looks like this. I'll take the blow-off tube off and I'll put the airlock in. I will let the airlock sit for exactly 1 week. So, from today, you've got a blow-off tube for 1 week, an airlock for 1 week. So you have your beer set and ferment for exactly 2 weeks. Alright, once your beer has fermented for 2 weeks, I'm not going to show you how to do this. Once your beer has, anyway, not in depth, once your beer has fermented for 2 weeks, it's ready to be bottled. This is a bottle, you buy it in the brew store. Okay. With this bottle, you buy caps. They're beer caps. You buy them in the brew store, and you buy a capper. You also buy this in the brew store. Now, this is going to be completely full of beer. So, the first thing you have to do is siphon it into something. I would just get a bucket and a siphon. Now by the time we're here, our beer is going to be completely done brewing. It will have eaten all the sugar that was in there, but you notice your beer is always fizzy. Well, how do you make it fizzy? You have to add your own sugar. So what you're going to do is you're going to take about a pint of water and add about 3/4 of a cup of corn sugar into that pint of water, boil it, stir it, and then you take this, you can buy this in the home brew store. This is one piece here. It's the first piece, and then this tube is the second piece. You put them together. You put this in the hole in your carburetor. You bring it down. You suck on this end, and as soon as the beer level gets to about here, getting into here even, then you take this end real quick, and you'll have this up on a chair, and you'll have a bucket under it, and you drop this in the bucket as fast as you can. I'll admit, siphoning's a trick. It would almost justify a whole episode just as long just on siphoning. But that would suck, so I'm not going to do it. But anyway, you just suck on this till the beer level gets maybe here. Then you drop this down in your bucket. You get all the liquid from here moved into your bucket. And then you add your concoction of 3/4 cup corn sugar and 1 pint of water. You stir it all up really good, and then somehow you get it into this beer bottle. I don't care how you do that. There's all sorts of different siphons you can do. There is one cool device, though it's really tricky to use. Looks just like this. What it does is it goes on the end of your siphon that I just showed you. This plugs into the other end, and you suck on this end, but you have to push this little black part down. And what you do is you're ready to put in your beer. You put it down there and you push it. When you push it down, it pushes, you're pushing this up. It releases a seal, and your bottle will fill because of the physics of the way a siphon works. It is a little tricky to use. The easiest way to do it is, just get a measuring cup, something like this, and you dip this in your beer, and then you just hold it like this, and you pour it in until your cup is full. It's very time consuming to do it that way, but it does work, and it works fine.